a choice right now, between fear and love. It's just a ride.
Out of the dark night of ignorance and into the shining light of truth.
Expanding reality.
A population of citizens capable of critical thinking.
We don't see things as they are, we see them as we are.
There's a level of reality where everything dissolves into an ocean of energy.
We empower our experience by insisting on our authenticity.
That's very profound. Very.
Expanding reality.
Welcome to Expanding Reality Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Thomas. On this episode, guys, we've got James Fox. He is the writer, producer, director of the movie The Phenomenon, and not the one with John Travolta, the really dope one about UFOs, the #1 documentary about UFOs. So everywhere that you can find this movie will be linked in the show notes, as well as his call to action to reach out to your senator, which we do cover in the episode as well. Enough of this business, guys. Let's get to the episode. You guys, thank you all so much for listening. The mighty and powerful James Fox. Well, welcoming to the show is James freaking Fox, man. We got James Fox, the writer, director, and producer of the movie The Phenomenon. I told a bunch of people about that I had you on. Unfortunately, the circle of friends that I run around with don't know too much about The Phenomena. It's pretty challenging. They said, oh, man, make sure you ask him what John Travolta was like in real life. I was like, guys, oh, come on, man. No, The Phenomenon, the amazing UFO movie, man. It's absolutely incredible. I cannot be more excited to talk to you about it. So, Mr. Fox, if you don't mind, just for the audience that don't know you and that think you directed The Phenomenon with John Travolta there, yeah, if you don't mind, just tell them a little bit about yourself, man.
Thank you for having me on, by the way.
Dude.
I grew up with a father who was paralyzed from the neck down with multiple sclerosis most of my adult life. And he was a journalist, amazing guy, self-taught, raised in Africa, speaking Swahili, came over and then he went back to England and then came to America. And he's like, I hitchhiked across America with, $5 in my pocket back in 1963. It's like, oh, probably went around Socorro at the time of that infamous landing case. My dad must have been around. But in any case, I became my dad's legs, my dad's secretary, my dad's nurse, his chauffeur, because, he lost his legs, but he continued to travel and do his work. And we got to interview people like Stephen Hawking, who wrote Brief History of Time, the theoretical physicist, race car driver Dan Gurney. We did really cool stuff together. Never had a lot of money, but had a lot of wonderful opportunities. And my dad was, mainstream kind of journalist. I mean, he was independent and he would pitch stories to different magazines, but mainstream stuff. And we had a wonderful relationship and a unique relationship because of the interdependence that was going on with him. And when I told him that I was doing a doc on UFOs, he was surprisingly totally opposed. And he used to say to me, like, son, I don't care if you want to, be a law professor or take the garbage out, as long as you're happy, then I'm happy. That's all that matters in life. So I was really surprised at how opposed he was to the whole UFO field. But I, being, I guess, a Taurus, I persisted and I produced a film on the topic, UFOs 50 Years of Denial, back in the late 90s. I never had any intention on doing another documentary on the topic, but without boring your audience too much, I ended up getting invited to Russia and met with some cosmonauts and some military generals in Star City and a city called Mineral Water just outside Chechnya. Again, back in the late 90s, probably 1999. It was right around the time when President Clinton was his sexual peccadillos with Monica Lewinsky. And I remember all the Russian generals and stuff they were shocked that it was even making news, because it was like, what does this have to do with, and then I made another film called Out of the Blue on the topic. And I said I'm never making another film on the topic again. Of course, I ended up doing a second version of Out of the Blue. Then I did a film called I Know What I Saw, and people would ask me, like, why do you continue covering this topic? Like, what is the fascination? What's the obsession? And I'd say, well, if you wouldn't mind suspending judgment and imagining hypothetically if this was going on, if there was tangible evidence being withheld from the general public, that we were probably not alone in the universe, how significant of a story would you give that? And people go, well, God, well, obviously, if that were true, it's the most significant discovery of our time. It would be clearly the biggest story. And so that's why I do what I do, and that's why I continue doing what I do. And when I set out in the 90s, in my 20s, to produce the seminal documentary, feature-length documentary on the topic, I was never satisfied with each film, and I learned from my mistakes. The last film I'd done prior to the phenomenon was a film called I Know What I Saw, and I almost sold it to Lionsgate. They had an amazing global footprint. It would have been in their whole distribution, and on top of the fact that they would have paid me well. And it's a good film. I Know What I Saw. I still, to this day, I think it's aged well, but it had kind of a weak narrative, and the production qualities were slightly subpar, and they ended up taking a pass. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, well, if I ever get the energy and I'm going to give it one more shot. And so I spent the better part of 8 years making the phenomenon, and I incorporated all the corrections from the mistakes I'd made in the past. And if I couldn't afford to do it the way that it needed to be done, I waited till I had the money to do so. I hired a National Geographic photographer. I hired a professional writer that I worked with closely, and I had a budget. And we ended up with a film that I'm extremely proud of.
Well, 8 years, and you shot a hell of a shot, man. Slam dunk is what you shot. I mean, it's incredible. And I still love your older films, though. I can see the progression in it. You can definitely see where you were and what you've come to, and where you are, man, is only the beginning for you. Like, you get that, right? Like, this is it. This is only the beginning. And I want to talk to you a little bit more in depth about my observations about that a little bit later. But so when doing this film, what was the best part about it? Like, your overall arching, this is the coolest part about this entire process, the idea, the concept, everything about it, besides the thought experiment, of course, and the idea of the UFO phenomena being something actually legit. But in your mind, your personal thing, it makes me think back to what your dad said about either a lawyer or a garbage man, because it's a wide variety. That's a scope, right? I mean, in some people's minds. And I mean, you just nailed it with this thing. I just think that it's awesome. And I've got to think that you've got to be really proud of this.
I haven't watched it since I finished it, because quite honestly, I have PTSD from the experience, because the last year and a half push was incredibly traumatic. It wasn't just the complications and the obstacles that are inherent with producing a documentary. There were some legal issues, and then COVID hit, and we had a theatrical rollout. The ink had just dried from 1,500 theaters it was going to be released in, and I'd done this whole Dolby 5.1 surround mix with a sound engineer, and borrowed money from the bank to pay for the whole thing, because people were telling me, you're going to be in theaters. If your sound isn't right, the audience won't be able to identify what it is that's irritating them, but they're going to be irritated. And, you got to get that right. And so I remember thinking, at the end of any film project, you're generally broke. I mean, that's just the way it goes, because you push all in, right? And I took out a bank loan, and to my shock, I got it, because I didn't, I got the bank loan, and I said, okay, well, I got two things I can do. One is I could pay for better graphics, which I kind of wish I would have. It's the only slight weakness in the whole movie for me. Okay. Two, I paid for the sound, and I said, you know what? If I'm going to pick one or the other, it's going to be the sound. It's going to be in theaters. So I spent 6 to 8 weeks with a sound engineer, and I mean, my God, the surgery that they do is is quite something to witness. And you know, and then and then COVID hit. COVID hit and shut it all down. I mean, yeah, man, it was a lifelong goal, and I remember thinking, boy, I didn't see this one coming.
No. You had it all planned out. You had this dope shit going on. And
I had it all planned out, you know. But in the end, I think that it served me well. I hate to say that because, you know, but there was a global shift in consciousness that happened, and people were at home, and you know, I don't know. I think that maybe the timing was perfect with all the circumstances and everything going on in the world.
I'm a big believer in synchronicities, man. I don't think anything happens by accident. I really don't. And so, yes, to that point, and now look at your movie, man. Look what it's doing. I mean, because now you still have the opportunity once we reopen. You can come on the hell down to Texas and do it now. We're open. Come on. And
yeah, you know, that's one of the things I want to do is do a global tour of theaters and give presentations, and maybe do it with like someone like Lou Elizondo and Mellon and some of the witnesses in the piece from Africa, Australia, you know, demonstrate the global nature of the phenomenon, and go on a tour. And in fact, it's really funny. Just recently, I got contacted by a guy, and he's like, I got this bus. It's the UFO bus. And he showed me a picture of it. I was like, wow, this is quite impressive. I've got this vision of touring America, and I thought, you know, that's something that I would like to do, even if I didn't make any money at all, just to get it out there and have the experience, interact with the people. You know, that's important to me. And I've I never did any of this for the money. This was always something that I was digging ditches and painting houses and doing what I had to do to keep going. And there were times where I'd make a little money and then it would dry up and I'd be broke again. And, you know, and I would just persevere and keep going. And I'm very, very satisfied, not just the financial success of this film, which is it's nothing in the world of big movie producers, right? But for an independent documentary, we've done very well, thank God. And, but it's the first time that I've seen the level of endorsements from high-profile individuals on a UFO film that not only deals with close encounters of the first and second kind, but close encounters of the third kind. I mean, yeah, think about what was going through my mind when Senator Harry Reid, former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, and whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter because this is a high-profile politician, right? Yeah. And he's going to be connected to a documentary that talks about a UFO landing and aliens getting out and interacting telepathically with children in Africa in broad daylight. Like, think about that for a moment.
It's massive.
Like, it's mad. And I was having sleepless nights thinking that he's going to look at the movie and just say, "Take me out." Like, really? Because that's never been done before.
You know, you're right, but I think that it was his opportunity to kind of get his side of the story out. And you can even tell when you're interviewing him for the film. In the film, he's just got this weight to him. You know, it's this weight of just, God, I just want this out. You know, can we just tell the people?
That was a wow moment for me. I mean, you know, there've been a handful of times where I'm in the presence of someone so, I don't say established, but you literally pinch yourself and think, like, how did I get here? How did I get in the room with this individual? How did President Obama, Clinton, Trump, Bush, they're probably all going to see this movie because of this one man that I'm meeting with right now. They all know who he is. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. You know, that's just a weird feeling. It's a trippy feeling.
It's incredible. And really though, whenever you're asking him, you know, so some of this stuff hadn't seen the light of day, and he's like, most of it hadn't seen the light of day, man. And he just looks so defeated because he was the one that commissioned the committee to keep moving forward with this thing. I mean, he actually secretly allocated funds to a secret military project to continue the study of these things.
Yes.
And I think that's incredible. And what's that?
He said the level of resistance he got from the intelligence agencies was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, he said it was like they were just, you know,
Yeah.
And he had to fight. And some people lost their job. Like he said, it was Jesus. He never anticipated that.
Yeah. And I mean, even to the level of Podesta and John Mellon, I mean, the people that you got in this are fantastic. So who's your favorite person to interview for this film?
Just one person?
I'll give you two. I'll give you two. I know it's hard to pick. That's like asking me for a favorite guest.
I would say Christopher Mellon, former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence.
Okay.
He was instrumental in getting the tapes out of the Pentagon that wound up on the front page of the New York Times. Christopher Mellon, he's so measured and articulate, and he's an amazing person just to be in his presence. Christopher Mellon and Harry Reid.
Okay, that's awesome. Those are great answers. Yeah.
But the day that the week that we brought the African witnesses, now adults, together for the first time in 20 years, that was quite a day. That was one of those days that you go, I'm not going to be forgetting this anytime soon.
No, that is incredible, and what a way to cap off the movie too. It's incredible. So I wanted to ask you about a few ancillary things in between there, and then we'll get to that as well. And then I just had some just honest questions that I had for you, man, just about your direction and some conversations I've had with people on the show about you and your film specifically. So the Lonnie Zamora case, if you don't mind, just for the audience, man, just do you mind talking about that one for a little bit?
Not at all. You know, when one of my older partners had proposed doing the Lonnie Zamora case, and I'll remind your audience, it's a close encounter of the third kind. It took place in Socorro, New Mexico, 1964, April 24th. Right around 5 p.m. And Lonnie, the police officer, was on duty, and he was, in hot pursuit of a speeder going through town. Something caught his eye in the sky. It was like a flash, and he thought that there was a dynamite shack that was kind of off to the right, and he thought there might have been sort of an explosion or something. But anyway, he went to investigate. He discontinued his pursuit. That speeder got away.
Yeah.
And he went up this dirt road and drove down this dirt road and saw what looked initially like down in a ravine, a little arroyo is the way he described it. What he thought was possibly an overturned car. You're looking at something you haven't seen before, and a lot of times witnesses, their brains are trying to provide a conventional explanation as to what they're looking at, and they clearly can't. And he initially thought, well, there's an object down in this arroyo. It's got to be a car, but it's not a car. And he's looking at it, and then he sees two beans, very diminutive. He described them as very rather small, walking around the base of this egg. It looked like a white egg with landing gear. And there are different accounts. Some of them I went over with his wife, Mary, that he was in his car with his head out the window and his elbow on the window seal and the window rolled down, that he was actually calling out, trying to, hey, are you guys okay? Kind of thing. And one of them apparently, and I don't know, I can't say definitively because there are some accounts where he did say something, other accounts where he didn't, but his wife seemed to think that he did actually try to speak, hey, are you guys okay? And one of them turned and looked him right in the eyes. And his wife said to me, I don't know what he saw, but whatever it was, he was never the same. He drove a little further to get a closer look, and he got within about 50 feet of the craft. The beans were no longer outside of the craft. He'd heard the sound of what sounded like a hatch when he pulled up to it. He said he talked about, like when he was in the military, the sound of a hatch of a tank closing, a heavy clunk, and then the object lifted off with a blue flame. And he said it wasn't a typical flame like a rocket where it hit the ground and stir up the rocks and dust. It went into the ground like a warm knife through soft butter and didn't stir anything up. And then when it got to about 20, 25 feet, this egg shut off and went completely silent, and no flame, nothing, and was just stationary and silent. and then it had a big symbol on the side that was 3 feet by 3 feet, and it was red. And I found it was a inverted V. I don't know why they just got, was it an inverted V with 2 lines in the middle and 1 line on top. So it was like this with a line here, and 1 line across the top, in red, about 3 feet by 3 feet on the side. And then it flew off to I think it was off to the west towards Magdalena. And there were military officers and police arriving on the scene, police within minutes. In fact, I have testimony from Lonnie on tape saying that actually one of the police officers arrived as the object was still in sight, but he didn't want to get tangled up in the whole thing. And then military from White Sands Holloman Air Force Base arrived within an hour, and the bushes were still smoldering, and there were prints not only from the landing gear, four pods, but footprints corresponding directly to where the beings were standing on the ground. And they were small pad-like thing. They were small, and we have the diagrams from the military, the first military officer who was on the scene, drawings of the pads and the whole, and the footprints of the beings and where they were located and all that stuff. And it's considered the most well-documented close encounter of the third kind in U.S. history.
Yeah, and it's in your film. You call it the sighting that changed everything, and I completely agree with that. So I had a question about the foot tracks. So this wasn't mentioned in the film, and I haven't found any reports of this. I was just curious if you came across it. That it said that yes, the small little foot pads, and in your film, I think the dispatcher's son, right, of that night, had drawn the in the dirt and then set a quarter next to it for okay.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask. So they found prints.
Pablo Lopez.
Yes, that's right. They found prints, but did they find tracks? Like, was there a leading to and from? It was just two.
No, they came down off the craft. They took 2 steps in one direction and a couple steps in the other direction, and that was it. They didn't go anywhere else.
Okay, and that's what I thought. I was just curious about that one in particular, and that was the case that made Hynek think that UFO landings were a real phenomena, right? That's the one that changed his mind.
One of the side stories to this that I learned, and actually one of the reasons why Jacques Vallée ultimately got involved with the production, and what an honor that was to work with Jacques. I mean, my God, I never in a million years would have ever expected that would have happened. But Jacques had seen that I'd put a lot of time into that case. I mean, I spent 5 years going back and forth, and I did a lot of interviews with his coworkers and his friends, and that didn't make it in the film. The local sheriff. You only so much, can get in the movie. But Jacques when I told Jacques that I, spent as much time on that case as I had, and I showed him what I'd done, I think he felt like a distinct sense of obligation to get involved, because Jacques was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in probably around April 20th. Of 1964 with Dr. Hynek, and Dr. Hynek was giving him a tour of the base, and Jacques was asking Hynek to look into Project Blue Book files that were categorized as psychological, because witnesses that claimed to see beings were categorized as psychological. In other words, they were dismissed as like, Looney Tune kind of stuff. And so Jacques was there telling Hynek, look, you got to look at these close encounter cases. They're happening in France. I'm sure they're happening here. You got to look into these things. These are incredible. And literally a couple of days later, Hynek gets a phone call and is given the report of the landing case, the close encounter case that occurred in Socorro. And if you look at, it's so funny because I was in the edit room with this guy, Lance Mungia. He did a film called Third Eye Spy on the psychic CIA program back in I think it was the 70s. And he was really smart. He's like, James, we're doing all this archive newsreel footage and testimonials from the 40s and 50s and 60s from different areas in like Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. And he goes, James, we should get a map out and put pins in the map in these different locations. And I thought, that's a good idea, And when we did it, we realized that a lot of this activity was within a certain proximity of the first atomic bomb detonation in 1945 at Trinity Site. And we thought, well, that's interesting, kind of like, okay, Roswell, Holloman, even an area of Texas, the hotspot in Texas in 57, there were landings in Texas. I'm trying to remember the name of the town that was in.
We had Aurora as well.
Sorry?
And then Aurora, Texas, just out east. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, we took note of that, and of course later we found out when we met with Senator Harry Reid that one of the more alarming or astonishing aspects of the phenomenon that they uncovered was this attraction to not only nuclear weapons facilities, but in some instances they were interacting with and shutting off our nuclear weapons. So there's definitely a connection with that.
I think so, and especially in your movie, you do detail as well, like the Maelstrom Air Force case with Lieutenant Salas, and then as well as the 82, the Ukraine missiles that just armed themselves with no launch codes. And you guys go check this movie out. I know most of the audience has already seen it. It will be linked in the show notes. And then even the connection to the Rendlesham Forest case, that all of these are fantastical. They do have a serious interest in our nuclear programs and actually the nuclear programs of everyone around the world. And I like the description that it said that it's as if whenever they were shutting all the nukes off, it's as if they were taking matches away from children.
Don't you love that? Yeah.
Dude, that is perfect. I think it's brilliant. And even Lieutenant Salas, whenever he's at the disclosure meeting and he turns around and just said, well, it's like, why do y'all still have these things? It's like they're pointing that out to us. And then he walks off, and same Harry Reid type of thing. He's a little disappointed. You can tell there's a weight to the things that they understand and have experienced, and then question themselves, which I find fascinating, man. I think it's wonderful. Again, your movie is absolutely incredible. I want to ask you a couple more things about this specifically, and then I kind of have a question beyond that I haven't heard anybody ask you that. So,
Great.
So also, I wanted to talk about Jacques Vallée's pieces of debris or artifacts that he found that you guys took to Gary Nolan and had analyzed. So what was up with that?
Well,
it's pretty cool.
I was working with Jacques for at least a year, and I had no idea that he was doing this stuff. And one day he called to have lunch, and we got together in person, and he said, I think I'm going to invite you to a lab in Silicon Valley to do some filming. And I said, oh, okay, well, what's going on? And he said, well, we're doing we got this new machine, it's revolutionary technology, and we're doing some analysis work, and we think you could make a good segment of the movie. But because there hasn't been a publication yet of the results in a scientific journal, he had to be conservative on what he was willing to say regarding some of the preliminary analysis of this study. Hey, look, I'll take what I can get. I mean, this is amazing because this is like physical evidence being studied in a laboratory. It could be repeated. And so people complain like, oh, you guys didn't go far enough. I'm like, it's not my fault. Like, these are scientists, they're data-driven scientists, and they have their protocol. But I thought that was a fascinating segment. And I was amazed that Jacques, even in the lab, that's like a secure location, had the samples like this the whole time. He didn't even set them down. And if he did set them down for a brief moment, they were right in front of him. And I thought, Jacques, you're being a little funny with these samples.
Talk about playing it close to the chest, right?
Yeah, totally. And he goes, these things have a strange way of disappearing.
He's like, there used to be a lot more of them.
Yeah. So, but I think that's to be continued. I think there's more discoveries, and Gary Nolan, amazing guy. He got summoned by the White House to study the coronavirus, and so that that aspect of what he was doing with Jacques got put on hold. I think it's starting up again now. So things are a bit delayed. But yeah, I mean, he got literally a letter from the White House saying, stop everything you're doing, go into this. And he was in a full hazmat suit studying the virus for like months.
Wow. And you say that he had to hold back a lot, but what he revealed in there was incredible. And your movie is a banger through and through. Like the historical breakdown that you had a few cases in there I'd never even heard of, and I researched the subject quite a bit. And then you go into these parts of it, and then of course your contact part of it, which I also want to talk to you about because so the Papua New Guinea in 1959, the Australian missionary that was out there it was him and 38 people, so 39 people total saw a craft hovering with 4 small occupants, and of course and it's been reported quite a bit, like the black scuba suits or something like that they're wearing, standing on top of this craft that hovered there for several hours. And it's great the way that he recalls and describes it, because he's saying, so they're just standing there, and so I just waved at them, and then they waved back. It's fascinating. So you're talking bipedal hominoids, you're talking, torso, legs, arms, head, look like us, just a little smaller, wearing little black suits, waving at these people, and then it just sped off. Now, I had a question about that. Were the occupants still standing on top whenever it sped off at a high speed? Did you ever find that out? Or did they somehow get back in?
Because that sighting happened in 1958. For me to get and Hynek, Dr. Hynek investigated that case, I think in the 70s. Fascinating case, and people had really stood behind Father Gill, and getting the archive footage of that. Like I had to locate the guy who shot this documentary in the 70s. I found him. He's like really old now. He's like in his late 80s, and he's like, "Oh, I think I have the film on some weird format," and it took months and months and months. And then I said, "Look, if I need to fly out there to your house and help you get this process, like, whatever, transferred or whatever." And so we were very lucky to get the last remaining master of that interview with Father Gill. Father Gill has been dead for some time now, because that sighting happened in 1958 in Papua New Guinea. But that was considered an incredibly a credible case. And a nice prelude to Rua.
Yes. So tell us about that, man. That's such a special part of the film, dude. And the fact that it ended there is going to lead me into my next question. So please.
Right. Well, I'll start off by, and if I'm being long-winded, just tell me to shut up. But
we got all the time in the world. It's your movie night. I'm just chilling.
So I didn't believe that case happened when I'd heard about it back in the 90s. And so I heard about it in 97 from Steven Spielberg. I've mentioned this a couple times in the past. And I thought to myself, and I was making a documentary on UFOs, I thought, there's no way that a mass sighting with so many witnesses in broad daylight could occur. It's inconceivable to me in the whole world not know about it. I just dismissed it so quickly. So I don't blame your audience at all if they say, come on, a UFO landing at a school in Africa in broad daylight. I don't expect anyone to believe it. And I jokingly say, I offer this Parmigiana challenge where, I'll give you a chicken Parmigiana dinner if you watch the film and then still believe that this event didn't happen as I'm about to describe. But it was about 10:30 in the morning. It was in a place called Rua, Zimbabwe, which is just about 35 minutes outside Harare, which is the capital. And it was at a school called Ariel School. And there were roughly 100 children in the playground, give or take. They all saw a weird object in the sky. Some of them claimed a couple of objects, some of them just one. But these objects landed. Some of them say there was a larger one in the sky and a couple of smaller ones landed. But in any case, depending on where you were in the playground, people witnessed, more than one or one, and occupants got out, and they were diminutive, quite similar to what Lonnie had described, small, childlike. In fact, they interviewed one of the kids. We called him kind of like the engineer, because he was so pragmatic and matter of fact. And the person interviewing him says, "Well, how big were these so-called people or beings or whatever?" The kid goes, "About my size." And he's like in second grade or third grade. About my height. He was really funny. And these big eyes and stuff. And the children, not all of them, but some of them got within a certain distance of these beings, described a telepathic communication of environmental destruction, of not becoming too technologists, one of the kids stated, and being better stewards of the environment, of Earth, and so destruction. There was a Harvard psychiatrist by the name of Dr. John Mack that heard about the case. He flew to the location within 2 weeks of it, and with a camera crew, and he documented all the children on camera, and amazing sit-down interviews. He did interviews in the field, he did interviews near the landing site, in the playground, and then he did sit-down interviews with the children, one at a time. Remarkable archive material. We licensed that footage. Then we found, with the help of this guy Randall Nickerson, we found the children 20 years later from all different corners of the world, and we brought them together for the first time in 20 years. And their accounts today is just as incredible as it was, 20 plus years ago. They're adults. They've had time to process. They can articulate what they saw better. And I would have to say that it's probably the most compelling close encounter of the third kind in modern history.
Absolutely.
Just because of the sheer volume of testimony, of eyewitness testimony. You've got over 60 kids saying the same thing, drawing the same thing, some of them slight variations, but and then 20 years later, 25 years later, 24 years later, saying the same thing. And I put it at the end of the movie. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this sighting's got such an impact." And I went, well, 2 reasons why I disagree with that. One, I didn't believe it when I heard about it. Mm-hmm. So you have to build your case to get there.
Yep.
Especially if you plan on creating a documentary that's not going to preach to the proverbial choir. You're going to penetrate a much broader, more mainstream audience. You better give them a little UFOs 101 up to that point. Otherwise, they're never going to believe it, because I didn't believe it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that was the first reason why I decided to put that case at the end. And the second one is, where do you go from there?
That's my question. So I had a gentleman named Robbie Graham on the program before. He wrote a book called
British guy.
Yeah. I wrote Silver Screen Saucers. Him and I actually were talking about you and your film specifically. What we came to the question of we understand the reason that you did the film the way that you did, in the order that you went.
Yeah. Robbie was very interested in knowing about this.
Oh.
Can you see it, or is it too blurry?
Move it to here. There you go. I'll screenshot that for Robbie. Oh, wow. Damn. Robbie, what do you think about that, buddy? Damn, that's cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah, and you guys watching this on YouTube, just pause and read that. That is fantastic, man. That's awesome.
That's the original.
He's going to love that.
Yeah.
God, that's cool.
Yeah.
So when we had talked about this, and you would love Robbie. He's fascinating, very interesting guy, and just knows a ton. And film major, did that and wrote that book, Silver Screen Saucers, about the UFOs demystification and cover up in movies and TV in the early years. Based on the Robertson panel and 53's recommendation, and it was just a fascinating conversation. To your movie specifically, we were talking about the reason that you did what you did, because him and I, like you, we've done this, right? We know this, but like I said, your breakdown on it was incredibly necessary, incredibly important, not only for the newbies, right, the newcomers to the idea, and taking a look at the topic seriously, but also, like I said, there were a few cases in there I'd never even heard of, and the way that you related them all together was fascinating. So the question that we had, and something that I'd mentioned to Robbie, was now you have the world's attention with this topic. I mean, there's been tons of documentaries made on this, none like this, and none with this impact to the people. And like you said, I believe in synchronicities, man. All of this happened for the right reasons at exactly the right time. Not only with the Leslie Kean article that came out, but also with the Nimitzcraft footage with Fravor coming out. There's a domino effect of reasons why all of this is so interesting, and you did such a great job with this. Now, my question is, and what Robbie and I had talked about was, you have the world's attention now. Are subsequent films that you're going to make, keeping in mind that this is only the beginning for you, are subsequent films going to have more of the ancillary parts of the phenomena in it? Let's say, for instance, abduction cases, missing time. Even Jacques Vallée will talk about how there's all sorts of things that you have to ask the witnesses if they'll be honest with you, which is another issue, right, with the reporting, is because people won't report that they got probed or whatever. They'll just say, yeah, I saw something, I lost 3 hours, that's all I saw. And they remember much, much more. But it's hard for these folks to report these things accurately. So the question is will there be subsequent films now that the cat's out of the bag with this? You have the world's attention to where those kind of things will be incorporated as well?
Well, it's a great question, and it's funny because one thing that I've learned over the years is to never say never. Because every time I say I'm never doing another film on topic again, because it takes a lot out of you, it just does. And people say, why can't you produce your films faster? My response is, sure, I could, definitely. Like if you're going to do maybe a documentary on a specific case. But I've been trying for 27 years to create a seminal documentary, feature-length film that can transcend the UFO community and have an impact on mainstream media, because there's a colossal amount of incredibly compelling evidence, a lot more than anecdotal, that these things are real, that we're not alone. And there's a lot of noise around that core message that has deterred the average Joe from diving into the topic and taking it quite seriously. Of course, you got the Robertson panel that adopted the policy of ridicule. That didn't help. So I've been bogged down with creating this concept of a film, which is ultimately the phenomenon. I sometimes read, I try not to because you shouldn't, but I sometimes read like comments. People say, oh, it's the same old rehash bullshit. I'm like,
it's not.
First of all, it's not.
It's not.
Secondly, I can't change history. And third, do you have any idea what I went through to find the archival material? Like, I have archived material in that film that's never seen the light of day. Events that were put on the United Nations in 1978 that the very person, Lee Spiegel, who put the event on, hadn't even seen. So don't give me that crap that it's the same old. Yes, I understand it's got, elements of history it's elements of history. I can't change that. But when I covered stuff like Kenneth Arnold, I got his daughter, Kim Arnold.
Yes, you did.
I went to great lengths to reveal and overturn stones on revealing historical gems on stuff we know about, but to the next level. But I can't change history. The history of it is, the modern history is what it is. And the more salient aspects, cases, are the ones that I focused on because they're the ones that got the world's attention when they did. And that's, but now, finally, I say, okay, I did it. I didn't succeed with Out of the Blue. I tried Out of the Blue, a second version. I did 50 Years of Denial. Then I did Out of the Blue 1, and I was disappointed. So I did a second version of Out of the Blue. That was the director's cut. It's really good. I mean, I stand by it to this day. But I still failed. And then I did I Know What I Saw. I got close. I failed again. And then this one. And now I finally, like only recently, kind of patted myself on the back and said, okay, now, based on the assumption that the phenomenon is real, we've established that, okay? And if you haven't seen the phenomenon, when I move forward with these other projects I want to do, then that's your problem. But I'm moving forward on the assumption that the phenomenon is real. Let's go further with it. Let's explore other aspects of the phenomenon. Let's open up an international dialogue with the Harry Reids of Chile and France and Australia and Africa and in different countries in South America and China, Russia. That excites me. That the push that we've seen here in America for further transparency with Lou and Chris and people behind the scenes at the New York Times and all that stuff, that's very encouraging to me. Some people have their reservations about them. Oh, they're government insiders. Hey, great. You got government insiders that want to tell the public what's going on. Nothing they've said is conflicted with any of my research that I've done for the last 27 years. In fact, I'm taking notes half the time. I'm on board. Let's do this. So I'm extremely encouraged, and I haven't revealed publicly what my plans are now, but I can assure you they're big.
Okay. I trust you. I'm telling you, I trust you. Robbie would kick me in the ass if I didn't at least ask you that question.
Yeah, I promise you that it will be coming out, and you won't be disappointed.
Okay. No. I trust you. I'm telling you. You've kicked it off with this, and to the other movies, man, you're being too hard on yourself, dude. Like I said, all of those were necessary. They're great films. You needed that to get you to where you are. So every step you take is what leads you to where you are. They're not failures. They're just a step in the road on the way to the phenomenon, man. The #1 documentary out, man. It's huge. And then, like I said, this is just the tipping point. This is just your start off. Now, to the disclosure part of it, I think I'm with you on it. I've got some serious reservations that we're going to get anything of legitimate, tangible, anything out of this. I think though, no matter what they tell us, it's a step in the right direction, right? I had Stephen Bassett on the program with Darcy Ware, incredible indie filmmaker, by the way, which I want to talk to you about. He was talking about disclosure, and he's been saying, every year it's going to happen. Every year it's going to happen. And he reminded me of those people who say, well, Jesus is going to come back in my lifetime, and it never happens, right? Now, I think we're pretty damn close, though, but I also have reservations on a government that's lied to us forever about everything, and then just all of a sudden going to be altruistic for no reason whatsoever and just release the factual information. I think what they'll do is they'll continue to release probably some perception management elements of it. I don't think they're going to tell us the whole story, but I mean, like I said, either way, it's a win. It's a check in the win column, right? It's a step in the right direction. And honestly, even like Harry Reid in your movie said, I think it was him or Podesta that said, it doesn't matter why or what. It just matters that we talk about it and that we get it out. And I agree with that. So to that point, and I wanted to ask you a question because we're almost at the time we agreed on here. What do you think the phenomena is? And regardless of what you think it is, what's the most cool theory that you've heard? Because there's tons of them, right? That you would prefer it to be just for fun's sake, just for the thought experiment of it.
Well, to be totally honest with your audience, I have absolutely no idea what we're dealing with.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's the answer.
Yeah. Yep. Having said that, if I had to pick one, and of course I can't, but if I had to,
yeah, just for fun,
I would probably say that it's an interdimensional thing.
Okay. I like that.
I would probably say that they're around us all the time, and that the fabric of space, that they kind of slip in and out of our dimension. Perhaps, and this is total speculation, but perhaps the detonation of the first atomic bomb really got their attention. Maybe there's some sort of effect that has on their reality or not. I don't know. But there's certainly a connection with our atomic activity and their increasing activity and curiosity or presence. I think that you'd be fool not to recognize that connection. Whether it's relevant or a correlation, I don't know. I would imagine so. If they wanted to make their presence overtly known, they just have to fly over the Rose Bowl parade and it'd be a done deal. but they don't do that. But they do some pretty overt things. I think about the mass sighting that happened in March of 1997 in Arizona.
Phoenix Lights. Hell yeah.
That was a pretty bold maneuver over the bases, and it flew from the north to all the way across the state of Arizona. I think from 6:30 to 8:30, 9 o'clock p.m., maybe possibly as late as 10 o'clock. A whole armada of ships, right? So that was a pretty blatant display of themselves. You look at what they do, and you also look at what they don't do, and you kind of have to read between the lines. They make their presence known. There's no question about it, but they don't make it like super overtly, unequivocally. Like they chose a slightly more rural area, aerial school to land. If they would have landed in Harare, wouldn't it have been a different story? Harare is only 30 minutes away by car, probably a minute or two away by the way they fly.
Or half a second, or a blink of an eye, yeah.
Right, a blink of an eye, exactly. So, and I think about this stuff all the time, and I wonder, because people say, oh, well, the government releases this or they release that. Who is the government? Who has the authority to access this information? When Senator Reid says that what we've seen is only the tip of the iceberg, and of course we've suspected that for decades, who has the authority to release it? I've asked them, like, who does have the authority to release it? I haven't gotten a straight answer, to be honest with you. I don't know. And people say, oh, well, disclosure is around the corner. Disclosure about what? Like, is there anyone that actually has the full picture? I doubt it. Do they know that they're flying around and they're under intelligent control? And yeah, of course they do. Do they know it's not the Russians and the Chinese or anybody else? Yeah, of course they do. Do they have debris and possibly bodies from Roswell and other possible crashes? Yeah, of course they do. But does that mean they have all the answers? I don't know.
I mean, maybe not. They definitely know more than they're telling us for sure.
Oh, no question they know.
Right, yeah.
No question. Of course. Look, and I got to say, people, I started this call to action. Now, I had a call to action in the movie. One of co-producers, this guy, Dan Farrow, was like, you should put a call to action in the movie. I was like, great idea, duh. So we did. And then I had a call to action on the website. And then, of course, the 180-day deadline thing that got triggered by the signing of the COVID relief bill from President Trump in December of 2020. And we thought, hey, let's do a more focused effort and rattle the cages of our representatives and let them know that, hey, we're paying attention and we want to see more government transparency. We support your efforts. And things have changed a little bit, but when I was walking the halls of Congress distributing all 435 members of the House copies of Out of the Blue, I had conversations with some congressmen and some chiefs of staff, and they said, look, this is not exactly a career-enhancing move to go and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if we hear from enough of our constituents that that's what they want us to do, we'll do it. So things have changed a bit, obviously, since the publication of that article on the front page of the New York Times in December 2017. But still, they need to hear from us. So I launched a more focused campaign. I worked with Christopher Mellon. I worked with Lou Elizondo. We spent several weeks crafting the language. And it's UAPActNow.com. UAPActNow.com. It's free. We provide a template. We provide direct links to contact your representatives. We provide a telephone number to the switchboard. We made it as easy as we could possibly make it. Doesn't cost you a dime. Please, I encourage your audience. We can make a difference to contact the representatives and push for further transparency.
I'm going to make it even easier as well. You did send me this. I have already done it. Thank you, sir. And I'm going to be linking that in the show notes. So you guys, as you're listening to this, go down, scroll down. Click on the link. He's got a template in there, and it's got all the numbers and ways you reach a representative. Reach out. Let's make a difference, guys. Let's get these people on board with the fact that we do want to find out what's going on. We want more of it released. And like you said, the wave of it, that's a good career-enhancing thing, right? Because right now, they haven't heard from us. Not enough of us. So this is a great way, and it's a wonderful tool to be able to use. So link down in the show notes, guys. Use it.
So sorry. The site was launched 2 days ago. Very little publicity. And we've got 5,000 signatures already.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I'm one of them. So thank you. It was
Wouldn't
awesome.
it be great if we could get 50,000? We got 90 days.
500,000.
Well, yeah, I would love
Let's do that.
500,000.
Well, let's do that. It's not. Keep this in mind, James. Don't dream so low around me. All right, young man. You hear me? This is a rule of mine. Okay. There's an old saying that it's not that your goals are too high and you're missing them. They're too low and you're hitting them, buddy. All right.
Yeah. No, I like it. What if 5% of the U.S. population did it? That would be quite significant.
Let's do it. Roll out, guys. It's clip down at the bottom. Do it. Click. Go. Now.
One person does it, and he sends it to one person.
Yep.
That would do it.
Yeah, that's it. Just start a chain email. I mean, I've already gotten the listeners on board. I'll send it to all the guests that I've had already. I'm already forwarding this thing around, man. So we'll do it.
It's the first time that I've launched an effort like this that has the support of military and government officials.
Hell yeah.
So it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. Okay, so I know I want to get you to movie night here. One final question. So I wanted to know about your thoughts on, so I've had a guy on the show, a doctor actually, named Dr. Michael P. Masters. He wrote a book called Identified Flying Objects. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome guy. You can check out the episode. But I'll send you a link to his video. Okay. Awesome dude. So he is an anthropologist. He's actually a biological professor of anthropology up in Montana Tech, and smart dude, academic. And his idea about the phenomenon, and especially the entity specifically, is that they're future humans and time travelers coming back, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, lately, this has been one of my favorites. And like you, I don't plant my flag. I think when I asked you, that's why I asked you the way that I did. Not only what do you think it is, because I was curious about that. I kind of already knew the answer. But then what do you want it to be if you had to pick a favorite idea, right? So that's the reason I asked you in that way. Mine is this idea, this hypothesis, and he's got such a scientific breakdown on it, the way, and he's an anthropologist, so he studied ancient hominids, and he knows like what our lineage will look like in the future, or you can kind of extrapolate that out, right? And it's interesting too, because even in his work, he points out that there's millions of species that have evolved on this planet, but only one of them has been bipedal, and that's been us. So all these accounts of even the bipedals, the reptilians are bipedal, stuff like this. It gets pretty out there, but it's one of my favorite theories about it. Now, the other thing I'm thinking of, and now I kind of view the phenomenon through that lens, right? Not to plant my flag, I just kind of look into things. Now, whenever you were talking about Jacques Vallée in your film, whenever he said about the materials that you guys took to the lab, he was saying that it doesn't mean that they were made in outer space, but it's like 200 and something different components to this, and we only work with 80. So yes, it's not as if it was made in outer space. It could have been made in the future and brought back, or been a technology that was made in the future and then brought back. To the other point of it, the interdimensional part of it, time machines would look a lot like that. They would look like they're just shooting off real quick or blinking in and out of existence, and interdimensional beings would look like that as well. It kind of checks that box as well. I like the idea. I just think that that's one of the more fun ones. Like if you want to entertain the thought experiment of it, I like that one. So, and as I was watching your film,
I almost called the film All of the Above.
Okay. Yeah. I like the phenomenon better. It's a little
maybe it is all the above.
And that's the thing too, right? I mean, maybe it's all of it, or maybe it's like what Hynek, Vallée, even John Keel come to in that it's a psychosemantic thing, that it's something Earth is producing.
We're doing interplanetary, flight exploration.
Yeah.
And we've only been in the air for a little over 100 years. So, and it could be interdimensional, interplanetary, time travel. I mean, my God, this is a huge universe.
Yeah.
And what do we know?
Well, we don't know shit, man, to be honest with you. I think that it just keeps we know that there's some mysterious shit going on out here, and we don't know what the hell it is. I think that's and it's the people that are like, no, they're coming from Zeta Reticuli, and that's all they are, and that's all they could be. I'm just like, guys, come on, man. Stop
Yeah.
being, it's an ignorant perspective. I get that we all kind of start there, but it's an ignorant perspective.
And I don't claim to know what's going on. I really don't. People go, oh, you're saying they're ET or they're this. I'm like, quite honestly, I don't know. I just don't.
But this is what makes it so great, right? Because you can't know. That's the best part of it. But you're wise enough to say, I don't know. I mean, that's the correct answer, sir. That, sir, is the correct answer, sir. And then, whenever you talk about, and back to that real quick, was whenever how interested they are in our nukes. And of course, this flap started showing up around 47, detonated the first atomic bomb in 45. Future humans probably don't want us dicking around with this stuff, right? That could be another reason for the visitations, for the interest in it, for the technology developed to be able to disarm it so well or arm it well. It's I don't know, man. The more I look at it, the more I look at it in associated phenomena and the cases, and when I go back and look at it, especially watching your movie again, I was like, freaking time travelers, man. That's got, it's maybe, I don't know.
Hey, you know what? We know that time is malleable.
Yep.
We know that as time is relative to the observer.
Yeah.
It fascinates me that they have actually taken atomic clocks. I think they took them to the moon and proved. Didn't they come back like a minute and a half younger or something like that?
Yeah, and it's got to do with, like you said, the relative time. And you hear about all these paradoxes, and in that episode...
I can't remember what it was, but different.
Yep.
Just from that travel. Imagine traveling at the speed of light. You heard about the twin paradox theory, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it's just like trying to wrap my mind around that. You could have twins on Earth, okay, 4 years old. One of them jumps in a spacecraft, shoots off at the speed of light for 1 year. He comes back. He's 5 now, and his brother is an old man. That's like a fact.
It's like that Inception, Christopher Nolan's movie.
Isn't that amazing?
It's fascinating. I love that kind of stuff, though. And time travel is theoretically possible.
I'm like,
at least backwards time travel.
Can somebody explain that to me? I've had it explained to me a couple of times. I read Brief History of Time. I've watched documentaries, and I feel like at the time I can get right on the cusp. I'm like, I understand it, and then it's gone.
But it's just like the phenomena itself. It stays one step out of, like, we can conceptualize some of this stuff, but we can't, it's that one thing. It's right there. It's right on the edge. Like I said, I don't know. It's just one of my favorite ones to think about. And Dr. Michael P. Masters and I, we break down some time travel paradoxes. We talked about the movie Looper, and he hated it, and I thought it was great, and all this stuff. So it was an interesting conversation, and it's kind of cool, too, the way he wants to do this, because he's one of those academics, kind of like Diane Pasulka with her book, The American Cosmic. These are academics that are coming out and taking a good look at the phenomena in a way that they bring a scientific element to it, but they're at least willing to entertain the possibility and ask the questions. This goes along with your film. There's a shift in consciousness happening surrounding all of this, and I think it's great. And it's like he was saying, and he says it in his book as well, that what we need to do is marry the physics with the philosophy. We need to marry the sciences with the ideas and come to a middle ground and figure out where we are with this, but have honest conversations across the aisle without the butthurt and stuff like that. And it was funny, too. I said, so how were you received by the UFO community? And he said, horrible. I was like, I could have told you that, man, because there's those people that are like, nope, they're interdimensional. It's freaking hollow Earth, and they die on that hill, man. And I'm just like, it's just unfortunate. That's all. But like I said, the consciousness.
Yeah, no, I have said that, and there's a lot of mudslinging that goes on in the UFO community. I will not engage in any of it, and I respect everyone's path and everyone's belief, and that's your business, and that's your, trip, and that's great. And I go about my path, and I say to people, like, I don't try to force any beliefs on anyone out there. I try to put the evidence on the table and allow the audience to make up their own mind. You don't hear me saying, E.T. has landed. Nowhere in the movie. Look, if a witness says, hey, I think it was E.T., or hey, I think it was an alien, or hey, I think, fine. You can say whatever you think. I wasn't there.
Yep.
Whatever you think. And you can interpret that the way you want to. But I have to keep my opinion out of it. I really do. And I would even remember when I was doing the Rua section, I was adamantly working with this one guy, and he was trying to push it. I said, no. I said, we're going to say if the accounts are to be believed, then this could have been this. But that's as far as I could go with it, because A, I wasn't there, and B, my opinion is irrelevant. So, that's and that might be one of the reasons why mainstream has that it's been as well received as it has been. So
There's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm completely with you. The way that you have to really watch your speech whenever you're talking about this and citing things and quoting
Oh
stuff,
my
which
God, yeah.
you do a great job of it, man. It's
thank you.
monitoring. It's exhausting.
I put my foot in my mouth a few times, but
That's okay.
Hey, look, if I don't know something, I just say I don't know. I really don't. I wish I did, but I don't.
No, absolutely, and that's what I say here on the show. And like, I don't know, but let's speculate wildly, because that's fun. Let's just
I'm happy as long as I know. Like I said something about a meeting I had with an individual who's pretty in the know, or certainly in a position to be in the know. And I said that he had shared something with me, and I wouldn't reveal his identity, that I don't disbelieve, or nor do I believe. And I said this, and I thought, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. And then it was like, tweets going out. James Fox says aliens are walking among us. I'm like, no, that is
I didn't.
not what I said. So I thought to myself, well, I need to be even more careful. Maybe I don't even say that at all. Like, no, I've heard it from somebody who told me that.
Yes.
I didn't say I believed that.
But this is the part of it, right? People are dumb. I mean, not everybody. I'm generalizing, of course. I'm just saying there's a lot of dummies out there, and they're just going to put words in your mouth. Now, what's great about that is anybody worth their salt's going to look you up. They're going to find out that quote's inaccurate, and they're going to talk to you for 5 minutes or watch one of your films and know you don't have a stance. You just say, this is possible. Here's what the witness said. And those types of observations, which are brilliant, man, and that's the true you. So don't worry about all those dummies. Again, don't worry about that crap. Shake that shit off. Keep making badass movies, man. James Fox, I can't thank you enough for your time, brother. This was incredible, man. Did you want to plug anything? I'm gonna put your.
Oh, well, I'll just say that if anyone in the audience, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I've had people go, "Why didn't you tell me?" It's like, if you want to rent the film, just find the cheapest place. I think it's Amazon. If you want to buy it, then get it from Vimeo or iTunes, because it comes with 3 hours of bonus material, really cool stuff that didn't make it in the film that I wanted to offer at no extra expense. Doesn't cost you a dime more, and you get 3 hours of really cool stuff. The presentation at the National Press Club, unedited. Interviews from the 70s with Dr. Hynek. Interviews with generals in Washington, D.C., just cool stuff. And it really does help if your audience would take a moment and rate the film online. It's incredibly helpful. It really is, because other streamers, they look at that. They look at those ratings, look at the feedback, and they go, oh, okay, great. Well, then we'd like to have this on our platform, and the film gets to be seen by more people.
Yeah. Spread the word, guys. And it's great. We bought it on iTunes, and yes, the extra footage is, I'm grateful.
Right?
Thank you. It's so much fun, man. It's so cool. It's like 2 extra movies. It's great.
Yeah, I know. I stocked it full, and we've got some. I can assure you that we've got some really good stuff coming down the pike in the near future.
I trust you. I know it's going to be fantastic. I know why you did it the way you did, and you did a brilliant job, man. You're masterminding this. You're 10 steps ahead of everybody. I'm on board, man. I'm a big fan. So thank you again. This has been a true honor, man, honestly.
Oh, well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate any attention and support is greatly appreciated.
We've definitely got it here, and you got it home. So anytime you release anything, or you just want to come back and talk some shit, man, come on. You're welcome anytime, brother.
Okay. Hey, no problem there.
I know, yeah. We'll get some whiskey to you. James Fox, thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
Absolutely incredible filmmaker, absolutely incredible, down-to-earth, awesome guy. Easily one of my favorite people in the world. This interview has been one of my favorite interviews on this planet. One of my favorite conversations I've ever had. Okay, we're fanboyed out here. But you guys can find him in the show notes below. His movie will be linked there, as well as his call to action. You guys reach out, jump on board with that. Let's get to that 500,000 that we're talking about here. I think we can do it. I know we can. Get on board, file that thing, and then ship it off to somebody else. Post it to 5 of your friends. Just get it out there, man. Let's get these representatives starting to tell us what is going on with this thing. Let's get a call to action going. Come on, rally the troops. So as far as this show goes, you guys, we do have a Patreon. If you find the show valuable, you'd like to contribute as much or as little as you want, you can do that at Expanding Reality on patreon.com. As far as all the other stuff, you can find us on YouTube. This video will be on YouTube, so go check James out in all of his glory. And then we've got a Facebook, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And then the show, you can email directly at expandingrealitypodcast@gmail.com. Now, a massive thanks again to James Fox. It was so cool. It was so much fun. If you guys had any questions for him or anything you'd like for me to forward on, please do so at expandingrealitypodcast@gmail.com. I will ship those his way. Other than that, guys, you know the deal. Pick up a piece of litter. Buy a meal for somebody. Just do something nice. Make somebody's day with a smile. It's small things like that, guys. We live in a society. Let's keep moving forward here. Let's get out of that left-hand lane. And let's just, in general, guys, y'all just be good to each other, okay? We will see y'all next time. Thank you for listening.